In the heart of Nigeria, where dreams are forged and tested by the fires of ambition and temptation, lies the story of Amaka Adebayo. At 18, she stepped onto the bustling campus of a prestigious university in Lagos, her heart brimming with hope and her mind set on achieving greatness. Sent there by parents who sacrificed everything for her education, Amaka was poised to become the beacon of their aspirations. But as the pages of her life unfolded, she discovered that the path to success was not always straightforward. From the quiet dedication of her early days to the dazzling allure of newfound friendships, Amaka's journey took unexpected turns, leading her through triumphs, trials, and ultimately, transformation. This is her story, one of books, bad habits, and the unyielding pursuit of redemption. Amaka was excited. It had been a long journey, but she finally made it. At just 18 years old, Amaka Adebayo stood on the cusp of her dreams as she prepared to leave her small village in Oyo State for Lagos, where she would attend one of Nigeria's most prestigious universities. Her parents were proud. They worked tirelessly so their daughter could have opportunities they never did. Amaka, her mother said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder, "You are going far from home now. Remember who you are and what we taught you." "I will, Mama," Amaka replied with a bright smile. She hugged her tightly, feeling both nervous and eager about this new chapter in her life. The bus ride to Lagos seemed endless, yet every mile brought her closer to freedom and responsibility. As she stepped off the bus at Yoba campus, surrounded by students bustling around her, Amaka felt alive. This was a world now, filled with possibilities. She quickly found a hostel room, which she shared with 3 other girls, Ifeoma, Chioma, and Gozi. They greeted her warmly, helping her unpack and settle into her new space. That night, sitting cross-legged on her bed, Amaka opened her first textbook. She whispered to herself, "This is where I belong." The next few weeks flew by like a dream. Amaka immersed herself in her studies, attending lectures early and spending hours in the library. Her classmates admired her dedication, though some teased her playfully for being too serious. Among them was Chinedu Okoro, a charismatic boy from Enugu who always seemed to know how to make people laugh. "You need to relax more, Amaka," he told her one afternoon after class. "Life isn't all about books, you know." "I'm here to learn," she responded firmly, though there was a hint of amusement in her voice. Chinedu grinned. "Fair enough, but don't forget that university is also about having fun." Ifeoma, her roommate, often echoed Chinedu's advice. "You can't spend all your time studying, Amaka. There's so much more to experience here." Despite their encouragement, Amaka stayed focused. For now, her priorities remained clear, education above everything else. Still, she began exploring campus life beyond academics. She joined a drama club and attended social events occasionally, enjoying these moments while still keeping her grades high. One evening, during a bonfire gathering near the dorms, Ifeoma introduced Amaka to a group of older students. Among them was Tolu Akon, a tall, charming senior known for his smooth talk and expensive sneakers. He smiled broadly when he met Amaka, saying, "Welcome to the real university life." Amaka nodded politely, unsure if she liked his confident demeanor. But something about him intrigued her, even though she tried not to show it. As months passed, Amaka noticed subtle changes in herself. While she continued excelling academically, her friendships grew stronger, especially with Tolu. He often invited her out for coffee or dinner, claiming he wanted to help her adjust better to city life. Though hesitant at first, Amaka eventually accepted his invitations. "You deserve a break sometimes," Tolu would say, flashing his signature grin. "Work hard, play hard, that's my motto." His charm wore down her defenses little by little. One day, after an intense exam period, Tolu surprised her with tickets to a concert downtown. Reluctantly, Amaka agreed to go. The music, lights, and energy of the crowd swept her away. By the end of the night, she realized she hadn't laughed that much in ages. Back in the hostel, Ifeoma teased her. "Looks like someone's falling under Tolu's spell." Amaka rolled her eyes. "He's just a friend," she insisted. Yet deep inside, she couldn't deny the fluttering sensation whenever Tolu called or texted her. Meanwhile, her academic performance started slipping slightly. Late nights hanging out meant less time for studying. When she confided in Chioma, another roommate, Chioma warned her gently, "Be careful, Amaka. Don't let distractions ruin your focus." But Amaka brushed off the concern. After all, wasn't it normal to enjoy life a little? By the second semester, Amaka's routine shifted dramatically. What once revolved around classes and libraries now included parties, outings, and late-night chats with Tolu. Their bond deepened, though Amaka avoided labeling their relationship. To her, it was simply companionship, nothing more. Tolu introduced her to his circle of friends, many of whom lived lavish lifestyles funded by wealthy families or side hustles. Amaka marveled at their confidence and ease, though part of her felt out of place among them. Still, she strived to fit in, buying trendy clothes and experimenting with makeup tips shared by Ifeoma. One Friday evening, Tolu suggested they try something new, a club in Victoria Island. "It will be fun," he promised. Amaka hesitated but ultimately gave in. The club scene dazzled her, with its vibrant music and glittering lights. That night, Tolu handed her a drink, assuring her it was harmless. Trusting him completely, she took a sip. At first, the liquid tingled pleasantly in her throat. Soon, however, she felt unusually giddy, laughing uncontrollably at everything. Tolu laughed along, guiding her through the crowded dance floor. It wasn't until later that night, lying awake in her bed, that Amaka wondered if drinking alcohol might become a habit. Over the following months, Amaka's behavior changed noticeably. Parties became regular occurrences, and skipping classes turned into a frequent habit. Grades slipped further, causing tension between her and her parents, who expected nothing less than excellence. During phone calls home, Amaka lied about her struggles, fearing disappointment. Chioma noticed the shift too. "Amaka, you're losing yourself," she said one morning after finding her asleep fully dressed on her bed. "Remember why you came here?" "I do," Amaka snapped defensively. "But things are different now. Life's complicated." Not everyone approved of her newfound lifestyle. Some classmates distanced themselves, while others criticized her openly. Even Ifeoma expressed doubts, though less harshly. "Are you sure this is what you want?" she asked gently. Amaka shrugged, unwilling to confront the truth. Instead, she leaned harder on Tolu, who always supported her choices without judgment. Or so it seemed. By the start of her second year, Amaka's life had transformed entirely. Parties consumed most of her weekends, and skipping classes became second nature. Her once stellar grades plummeted, earning her warnings from professors who saw potential in her but lamented her lack of effort. Tolu remained a constant presence, always encouraging her to live freely and not worry too much about rules or expectations. One evening, after another wild night at a club, Tolu introduced her to something new, a pill he claimed would make her feel invincible. Skeptical at first, Amaka hesitated before finally giving in. The effects were immediate, heightened energy, euphoria, and an overwhelming sense of confidence. For hours, she danced like never before, forgetting all her worries. The next morning, however, brought a harsh reality. She woke up with a pounding headache, nausea, and a sinking feeling in her stomach. Still, when Tolu offered her the pills again, she accepted without hesitation. Slowly, they became part of her routine, first occasionally, then regularly. Chioma confronted her one day during lunch. "Amaka, this isn't you," she said firmly. "You're ruining everything you worked so hard for." "I'm fine," Amaka replied dismissively, though her voice wavered slightly. Deep down, she knew Chioma was right, but admitting it felt impossible. As time passed, Amaka's relationship with Tolu grew more complicated. What started as casual companionship evolved into something deeper, or so she thought. He showered her with gifts, took her to expensive restaurants, and made grand promises about their future together. But beneath the surface, cracks began to show. Tolu often disappeared for days without explanation, leaving Amaka anxious and confused. When she questioned him, he brushed off her concerns, claiming work commitments or family issues. Yet his behavior grew increasingly erratic, and Amaka noticed signs of financial strain despite his flashy lifestyle. One night, after yet another argument, Tolu snapped. "Why can't you trust me?" he demanded angrily. "You're always overthinking things." Amaka tried to defend herself, but his words stung. Doubts crept into her mind, planting seeds of insecurity. Was she being unreasonable? Or was there more to Tolu than she realized? Meanwhile, her academic performance continued to decline. Midterm exams approached, and for the first time, Amaka considered dropping out altogether. The pressure overwhelmed her, compounded by guilt over disappointing her parents. During the Christmas break, Amaka returned home reluctantly. Her parents greeted her warmly, unaware of the turmoil brewing inside her. They asked about school, friends, and her plans for the future, and Amaka struggled to keep up the facade of normalcy. Her father, a stern but loving man, pulled her aside one evening. "Amaka, I see something different in you," he said gently. "Tell me what's wrong." Caught off guard, Amaka burst into tears. For the first time in months, she opened up about her struggles, the parties, the drugs, the failing grades, and her confusing relationship with Tolu. Her father listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he sighed deeply. "We sent you to university because we believed in your potential," he said. "But no dream is worth losing yourself. You must find your way back, my daughter." His words struck a chord within her, but old habits die hard. Back in Lagos, Amaka found it difficult to resist the pull of her old routines. Tolu, sensing her wavering commitment, redoubled his efforts to keep her close. The turning point came unexpectedly. One night, after consuming too many pills and drinks, Amaka collapsed in the middle of a party. Panicked, Tolu carried her to his car and drove her to a nearby hospital. As doctors treated her, he sat silently beside her bed, guilt etched on his face. When she regained consciousness, Tolu apologized profusely. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he whispered. "I care about you, Amaka. Please believe me." But Amaka wasn't convinced. In that moment, surrounded by sterile hospital walls, she realized how far she'd fallen. The dreams she once cherished seemed distant, almost unattainable now. Worst of all, she couldn't shake the feeling that Tolu had played a role in leading her astray. Over the following weeks, Amaka distanced herself from him, cutting ties completely despite his pleas. It was painful, but necessary. Without his influence, she began reflecting on her choices and the consequences they carried. Determined to turn her life around, Amaka sought help. She confided in Gozi, one of her roommates, who connected her with a counselor at the University Health Center. Through therapy sessions, Amaka learned to confront her insecurities and understand the root causes of her destructive behavior. She also joined a support group for students struggling with addiction. There, she met others facing similar challenges, which gave her strength and hope. For the first time in years, she felt less alone. Academically, progress was slow but steady. With renewed focus, Amaka managed to improve her grades, though catching up proved challenging. Professors offered guidance and encouragement, reminding her of her capabilities. Despite these positive steps, guilt lingered. She feared facing her parents, knowing they deserved better than the version of herself she'd become. Midway through her third year, Amaka decided to visit Tolu one last time, not out of affection, but to settle unfinished business. Their meeting was tense, filled with accusations and recriminations. Tolu denied any wrongdoing, blaming Amaka's choices on her own weaknesses. "You chose this path, not me," he insisted coldly. Amaka shook her head, refusing to let him shift the blame. "Maybe I did," she admitted. "But you encouraged it. You exploited my trust and manipulated me. That doesn't make it okay." Leaving him behind felt liberating, even if it left a void in her heart. Moving forward meant letting go of toxic relationships and focusing solely on rebuilding herself. With graduation looming, Amaka threw herself into her studies, determined to finish strong. she reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during her darkest days, grateful for their forgiveness and support. Together, they celebrated small victories, finding joy in simple moments. Her parents visited her several times, proud of her resilience and growth. Though conversations about the past remained difficult, they expressed unwavering love and belief in her future. Still, shadows of regret followed her. She wondered if she could ever fully reclaim the person she used to be, the ambitious, disciplined girl who dreamed big. At times, self-doubt crept in, threatening to derail her progress. But each time, she reminded herself why she fought so hard, to honor her parents' sacrifices and prove to herself that redemption was possible. On the day of her graduation, Amaka stood among her classmates, dressed in her cap and gown. Tears streamed down her face as she watched her parents beam with pride. Despite her setbacks, she graduated with honors, no less a testament to her perseverance. In her speech as valedictorian, she spoke candidly about her journey, acknowledging both her triumphs and failures. Life will test us in ways we never imagined, she told the audience. But it's our ability to rise after falling that defines us. Afterward, her parents hugged her tightly, whispering words of encouragement. For the first time in years, Amaka felt truly whole. Months later, as Amaka settled into her first job in Abuja, memories of her university days resurfaced. While she cherished the lessons learned and friendships forged, she couldn't ignore the pain caused by her mistakes. Tolu occasionally reached out via social media, but she ignored his messages, unwilling to reopen old wounds. One evening, while scrolling through old photos, she stumbled upon a picture of herself during her first semester, smiling brightly, full of hope and determination. Comparing it to recent images of herself, she marveled at how much she'd changed, both physically and emotionally. Though she'd rebuilt her life, some scars remained. Regret lingered, a constant reminder of choices made and opportunities lost. Yet Amaka accepted them, recognizing their value in shaping her into the person she was today. Years later, sitting alone in her apartment, Amaka reflected on her journey. From books to bad habits, she'd traveled a winding road filled with highs and lows. Along the way, she'd lost pieces of herself, only to rediscover them through struggle and sacrifice. As she prepared for bed, she glanced at a framed photo of her family on her bedside table. Smiling faintly, she whispered, "Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." And though tears still fell occasionally, they were no longer bitter. Instead, they served as reminders of the strength she'd gained, and the promise of brighter days ahead. After settling into her new job in Abuja, Amaka realized how much she missed the genuine connections she once had with her friends. During her darkest days at university, many of those friendships had faded due to her choices and behavior. Now, determined to rebuild what was lost, she reached out to a few people who meant the most to her. Chioma, her former roommate, was one of the first to respond. They met for coffee at a cozy cafe downtown, catching up on years of missed conversations. Chioma listened patiently as Amaka poured out her heart, apologizing for how she treated her during their time together. "I'm sorry, Chioma," Amaka said softly, tears welling up in her eyes. "I let my pride get in the way, and I hurt you without realizing it." Chioma smiled warmly, placing a hand on hers. "You were going through a tough time, Amaka. We all make mistakes. What matters is that you're trying to fix them now." Their conversation marked the beginning of a renewed friendship. Inspired by this, Amaka reached out to others, old classmates, drama club members, even Ifeoma, who had always been supportive despite their differences. Each interaction brought her closer to healing old wounds and rebuilding trust. Amaka's new job as an assistant manager at a marketing firm in Abuja tested her skills and resilience. The corporate world was vastly different from university life, demanding long hours, quick thinking, and adaptability. At first, she struggled to keep up, doubting whether she was cut out for such a fast-paced environment. Her boss, Mrs. Odeola Ogunlai, noticed her struggles but also saw potential in her. One day, after Amaka made a critical error in a presentation, Mrs. Ogunlai pulled her aside. "Amaka," she began gently, "I know you're capable of more. Don't let fear hold you back. Every mistake is a lesson, not a failure." Touched by her mentor's encouragement, Amaka redoubled her efforts. She stayed late at the office, asked questions when unsure, and sought feedback regularly. Slowly but surely, she gained confidence and earned respect from her colleagues. By the end of her first year, Amaka received a promotion, proving to herself that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. For the first time since leaving for university, Amaka returned to her village during the summer break. As the bus wound its way through familiar roads, memories flooded back: her childhood home, the market where her mother sold goods, the schoolyard where she played with friends. Her family welcomed her with open arms, overjoyed to see her thriving professionally. However, they weren't blind to the changes within her. Her father, especially, observed how mature and composed she had become compared to the girl who left years ago. One evening, sitting under the mango tree in their backyard, Amaka shared stories of her journey, both the highs and the lows. For the first time, she spoke openly about her struggles with addiction, her toxic relationship with Tolu, and the lessons she learned along the way. Her parents listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When she finished, her mother hugged her tightly. "We are proud of you, Amaka," she said simply. "Not because you never fell, but because you stood back up every time." That night, lying in her old bed, Amaka felt a deep sense of peace. Being home reminded her of who she truly was: a daughter, a sister, and someone capable of making a difference. Inspired by her own experiences, Amaka decided to give back to her community. She started volunteering at a local youth center near her workplace in Abuja, mentoring young students struggling with similar issues she once faced. Many came from disadvantaged backgrounds, facing pressures like peer influence, financial strain, or lack of guidance. During one session, a teenage girl named Blessing confided in Amaka about feeling lost and overwhelmed. "Everyone expects so much from me," Blessing admitted, her voice trembling. "But I don't think I can live up to it." Amaka nodded understandingly. "I know exactly how you feel, Blessing. Trust me, I've been there. But remember this: your worth isn't defined by other people's expectations. Focus on what makes you happy and fulfilled." Over time, Blessing became one of Amaka's closest mates, often seeking advice and support. Seeing her grow gave Amaka immense satisfaction, reminding her why helping others mattered so much. On the eve of her 25th birthday, Amaka found herself reflecting on the past 7 years. From the hopeful teenager stepping onto campus to the woman she was today, her journey had been anything but straightforward. There were moments of triumph, yes, but also deep regret and sorrow. She thought about Tolu, wondering if he ever thought about her. Though she'd cut ties long ago, his memory lingered, a reminder of the dangers of misplaced trust. Yet, she no longer harbored anger toward him. Instead, she saw him as part of her story, a chapter that taught her valuable lessons. As she sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by photos of loved ones, Amaka felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for her parents' unwavering love, for her friends' forgiveness, and for the second chances life had given her. Finally, she wrote a letter to herself, sealing it in an envelope labeled, "To my future self." In it, she promised to continue growing, learning, and cherishing the people and opportunities around her. With a contented smile, Amaka blew out the candles on her birthday cake, knowing that while her past wasn't perfect, her future held endless possibilities. And for the first time in a long while, she believed in them wholeheartedly.